Hello, this is Rick Meyer with Running on Faith Ministry Weekday Devotion. We're excited about all those running in the Olympic Marathon trials this Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia. We're heading down Friday, then having the worship and prayer service Friday evening and watching them race Saturday and having fun after that. It's going to be a wonderful weekend. For today's devotion, we are looking at John chapter 21, verses 14 and 15. This is the third time that Jesus manifests, that is to mean to make himself visible to the disciples after the resurrection. Then going on down to verse 15. So when the disciples had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Simon Peter responded to Jesus, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus looked back at Simon Peter. "Feed my lambs." Simple command. Feed my lambs. There's numerous ways of feeding lambs. We'll go into more specifics on that on another devotion. We can feed people with encouragement. We can feed them physically. We can feed them emotionally. We can feed them through prayer, with most importantly with sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. And thinking about feeding lambs, and I grew up on a farm and I raised livestock, so I think about things in a literal sense. My brother-in-law and nephew still do feed sheep. My brother-in-law's been doing it since he was in junior high, so he literally is a shepherd. And speaking of being a shepherd, and the next passage, Jesus says to Simon Peter, "Shepherd my sheep," meaning take care of my sheep, protect my sheep. But today we're focusing on feed my lambs. And obviously feeding lambs requires nutrition. It requires hay, oftentimes. And speaking of hay, one of the phrases we frequently hear from certain people around championship race time or other big events in life is, "The hay is in the barn." What in the world does that mean? The hay is in the barn, referring to the big race? Well, yes, the training is done. Our bodies are as ready as we're going to be. We've done the mileage, we've done the speed work, we've lifted weights, we've done all the physical and mental preparation that we can. Nothing that we do between now and a big race. I'm not running, but anyone running a big race, there's nothing we can do between that point and the big race to improve our physical conditioning. As a farm boy, though, I think about the hay is in the barn, and that's just half of the step. For hay to be effective, it has to be fed. The purpose of raising hay isn't to put it in the barn. The purpose of raising hay is to feed it to the livestock, to make a profit, to have a nice juicy steak. That is the purpose of raising hay. We simply put it in the barn to protect it from weather, protect it from losing nutrients or being blown away by dust in the wind. Okay, bad joke. All we are is dust in the wind. And also, thinking along those lines, remember, hay has to be fed to have a juicy steak. I'm going to repeat that for however many times I've already said it. Hay has to be fed to have a nice juicy steak. On the farm, whether you have hay in the barn, whether you have a silo with silage, whether it's a ground silo or whether it's the old silos, you don't see as many of those anymore, or harvest store, whatever type of storage unit you have for that hay, it has to be taken out of the storage unit and fed to the livestock. You have to transport the hay to the livestock, to wherever they're at, whether they're out in a pasture, a field, or whether they're in a feed bunk or feedlot, transport it to the feed bunk. And that feeding livestock, you have to do it every day of the year, regardless of temperature, regardless of the weather conditions. It's done in every imaginable weather condition, at least in Kansas, Nebraska, where I grew up. It might be rain, it might be muddy, you have sloppy manure from all the rain, you can have snow, ice, hail, and lightning. And like we said earlier, dust in the wind. I had to get that in there one more time. Occasionally, equipment breaks down. And sometimes you have to jerry-rig the equipment to complete the task. And all of this, getting the hay fed, making the equipment work, it takes perseverance. Love drives perseverance. Whether we're feeding literal lambs, literal livestock, or whether we're feeding God's people, we must proceed with perseverance. We must persevere. Love drives perseverance. You may get challenged with coworkers, with peers, with employees, with your children or parents or grandparents or whomever it may be. Persevere. Love drives perseverance. Love drives perseverance. One more time. Love drives perseverance. Who and what do you love? When you love the Lord Jesus Christ, when you love God with all of your heart, all of your mind, and all of your soul, you will love others every bit as much as you love yourself. And that will drive your perseverance to do all that God has called you to do in feeding His lambs. For those running the Olympic marathon trials this Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia, are you willing to feed all the hay in your barn, persevering for 26 miles, 385 yards, and 2¼ inches through whatever is necessary to glorify Jesus, not only during the race, but beyond the finish? Are you willing? For those running a different race, or those not running a physical race, but a race in life, are you willing to feed all the hay in your barn to all the lambs that God places in your life to feed through whatever conditions is necessary to glorify the Lord Jesus Christ? We believe in you. When you trust in God, when you love God, when you seek the Lord Jesus Christ with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and love others as much as yourself, we believe that you too will persevere.